The Chargers have hired their new quarterbacks coach to help guide superstar quarterback Justin Herbert, and we think he's in good hands.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 7 seasons, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and also follow the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. And David, we have news today because the Chargers have hired Doug Nussmeier to be their new quarterbacks coach, and he was the quarterback coach for the Cowboys and now has a lot of, familiarity with new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. So we're going to talk about how we feel about that. I think we both generally like the move because he becomes the heir apparent as we see it to the throne, and there's still more Justin Herbert can unlock. And I also like the fact that now Justin Herbert has two quarterbacks or two former quarterbacks kind of in the two highest offensive positions of power, and how that can help him, and just having dealt with a lot of different quarterbacks. But we'll also talk about another new hire, Jeff Howard, the new linebackers coach, replacing Michael Wilhoit, which was a surprising move. So we'll talk about what we think about this guy who's pretty much only coached defensive backs at the NFL level. But this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown today to get started. David, Doug Nussmeier, the former Cowboys quarterback coach, now comes along with Kellen Moore. What is your first reaction to? Did you like the move? This is someone we kind of brought up before and we're thinking made a lot of sense, and now it's official.
Yeah, and just like you said, it just looked like a move that made a lot of sense. It was very logical. This was, someone that's familiar, that worked intimately with Kellen Moore, the new Chargers offensive coordinator, someone who is going to be in his court, who's coming over to a new team, a new organization, who, you get to bring somebody you're familiar with. Obviously, Kellen Moore said he had a good relationship so far with Brandon Staley, and that's great. But whenever you step into a new situation, it's always nice to have somebody that you're familiar with, somebody that you know.
Absolutely. And this is a guy that comes with a long track record and a ton of success, at a lot of different places. But, helped Dak really have some of the best seasons of his career. Been with Kellen Moore since 2018. So they have a ton of familiarity. Come from kind of the same coaching tree of Scott Linehan, who Kellen Moore was under. Scott Linehan was the coach for him in college for 2 seasons. Doug Nussmeier, who was a great college quarterback too. So we'll talk about that as well. But the biggest thing here is, and the thing we've been worried about, is who they were going to pick at this position, because that becomes the heir apparent to the offensive coordinator throne, right? And this only matters if the Chargers go off offensively in 2023, right? So this is a good problem to have. And if not, they could both be gone, if Brandon Staley's on the hot seat in 2023. So if things go well, this is a guy that makes a lot of sense, right? Finally, hopefully being able to, even if they have to switch coordinators, keep some continuity for Justin Herbert, who's going into his 3rd OC in his 4th season, right? And you're getting someone in Nussmeier who helped build the Kellen Moore offense, right? That has been there with Kellen Moore the entire time he's been offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, pretty much, besides 1 season, basically. But it was there even in that 1 season in a different role. And that's what you want. This is a dude who knows this offense front to back, and that's exactly what you need if you're going to be moving on from another offensive coordinator after 2023.
Yeah, because Kellen Moore is already a guy that has received and done head coaching interviews. So
Right.
in this situation here, working with Justin Herbert, is if he's able to unlock the somewhat, what seemingly limitless potential that Justin Herbert brings to the table, and we really see everything that he is capable of doing, there's a good chance that Kellen Moore, just like the string of other young coaches that have got hired as head coaches this cycle, Kellen Moore might be out the door following them with his own head coaching position. So
especially under a defensive coach, right? Because that's the important thing here. Because if it was Andy Reid and Kellen Moore was under Andy Reid, he probably wouldn't be necessarily getting the first call there, because it's everyone gives them the credit for that. He gets full credit, but good or bad, he gets the the total load of it, because that's exactly what Joe Lombardi had, right? When your coach is a defensive minded coach, you're going to get the credit either way, whether it's a failure or whether it goes great.
Yeah, no safety net there at all. But if you do well and you go out there and you excel, you get to take all the glory. You get to take all
Yeah.
the credit. You get to put your stamp on it and say, hey, that was me. I did that. I was able to unlock Justin Herbert. I was the one that can do that for the Chargers, and I can do that for your organization and for your team. So just as much as Kellen Moore wants to excel in his new position here, it's going to be beneficial for him to do that
Right.
because he wants to be a head coach. So for him to want to be a head coach and to have Doug Nussmeier in the building that is, like you said, understands the offense, can communicate the offense to, seemingly step into that position if Kellen Moore does get that head coaching job, that seamless transition is what you want. You just want, especially with Justin Herbert, who, like we've talked about, has had to endure so
Yeah.
much turnover in his, college and professional career, to kind of limit that as much as possible with someone who understands the offense is just smart business.
And, like, I don't think there's another person on the planet that would be more equipped if you want to keep going with what Kellen Moore kind of builds here, right?
Yes.
Maybe he throws his own wrinkles in there too. And
Sure.
we probably haven't really fully seen what a full-blown Kellen Moore offense looks like because he had Mike McCarthy and Jason Garrett looking over his
Right.
shoulder, right? So now them two guys get in the lab. And I think the timing of it is not a coincidence because the Ravens just hired their offensive coordinator over the weekend. And this is a guy that was applying for that, right? He was a candidate for the Ravens OC job. So I think
Yeah.
once that ended up not coming through and they went with Todd Monken from Georgia, it lined up to where, okay, now he's, instead of taking an OC job, because he was in the mix for OC jobs,
Right.
which is a good sign,
Yeah.
he comes in as the Chargers quarterback coach. And it makes a ton of sense for both these guys. Because not only does
Yes.
Kellen Moore get a great chance to be a quarterback and a head coach,
Yeah.
this guy gets a real chance to step up and be, an offensive coordinator for an NFL team. Something that I think he definitely has to appeal to him, right? But that
Right.
is the thing about Justin Herbert, because as good as he's been the first couple seasons, he can still improve. And like
Yeah.
Pep Hamilton, got some good things out of him. Shane Day, hard to know exactly what, was him, what was Lombardi, how much that, but their first season, they were good together, obviously. But Doug Nussmeier also gets the chance to, find some of those ways that maybe Justin Herbert hasn't been, truly unlocked yet.
Yeah. So, hopefully next year, Justin Herbert is fully healthy. He's not bogged down by any injuries. And we get to see some more of the athleticism that
Yeah.
Justin Herbert brings to the table, more of that QB running game, which
Agreed.
was showed in Dallas and that Dallas offense. And we know Justin can do it. We know why he didn't do it last year. It was obvious the injuries were going to prevent him, and you don't want to lose your quarterback for the year. And you're going to take him out of those situations. If he's coming back fully healthy, that's one of the things I'd like to see incorporated in the offense. Also, maybe try to make him take a little more chances. He's very risk averse. He checks it down a lot, which is okay. You want to keep the chains moving. You want to keep possession. But with that arm, with that ability, you want to see him unleash it a little more. Take a few chances here and there. And we might see some even bigger numbers that we've already seen from Justin Herbert, being one of the best quarterbacks through his first 3 years in NFL history.
When you're talking about what you want to see more, it's just explosiveness, right? With
Yes.
an offense that has Justin Herbert, you want it to be more explosive. You
Yeah.
want to see more quarterback runs. You're not asking him to be Lamar Jackson,
No.
obviously. You know your strengths, but like he hasn't run so much where you can legitimately catch people off guard, and he has the athleticism where if you do, that could be a 20, 30-yard gain, right?
Definitely.
Because and we've seen that from him in years past. But yeah, maybe some of the arm angles, right? Seen a lot of batted passes from Justin Herbert. Maybe you can
Too
clean a
many.
little bit of that up. But yeah, the confidence to stick on some reads a little bit longer. You
Yeah.
don't usually want to stick on reads as a quarterback. You want to get
Right.
through it quickly. But most people don't have, the V8 brain that Justin Herbert has up there where he's getting through them
The
so
academic
quickly
Heisman.
that a lot of times he's still going with the right pass. A lot of times the
Sure.
right play in those situations is the check down. But
Right.
maybe, getting him to push the ball down the field more, which Dak was able to do. The average depth of target for Dak's receivers, and where he's throwing the ball was much higher than Justin
Much higher.
Herbert's last year.
Yeah.
And I think especially in that intermediate area, somewhere where they can truly unlock and haven't really yet, a lot more 15 to 20-yard gains. And I think having two quarterbacks now in positions of power is going to hopefully give him a little bit more comfort. We've heard,
Yeah.
what they think that Chase Daniel does for him. Maybe they can get more of that now with having two former quarterbacks involved. I mean, Joe Lombardi wasn't really that. Shane Day, like these guys were more prominent quarterbacks, played in the NFL, right? And have that experience. And I think that's important. So I want to kind of talk about that a little bit as well as just Nussmeier having worked at the collegiate level, the NFL level, a lot of different quarterbacks and how that experience can kind of help him. But before we get into that, I do need to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by Built Bar, my favorite protein bar, and the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat and you don't want all the fat and the calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We know that the holidays are now over, guys. Hopefully you're still sticking to your New Year's resolutions, but diets can really suck and they can really be boring at times. Get something that's going to break up the monotony with Built Bar. And there's so many great flavors to choose from, like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, just to name a few of them. So many good flavors. And you'll think, hey, can I eat something that tastes like a churro? Usually your diet doesn't allow it. But with Built Bars, most of the bars have only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. You're getting a lot of pack in that punch right there, right? You're getting a ton of protein. And most importantly, you're getting something that tastes great. Because let's be honest, if it doesn't taste great, I'm just not going to eat it. And all the bars are 100% covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew. And you can now find them at Sam's Club and go pick up a 13-bar box, or you can go to Walmart, pick up a 4-bar box and try a few different flavors and figure out which one is your favorite. And you can save some money if you go to BuiltBar.com. You can use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and you can get 15% off your next order. Doug Nussmeier, the new man in charge, the new man that's going to get all the credit or all of the blame for how Justin Herbert plays in 2023, him and Kellen Moore, I guess. But this is, I like the hire for the Chargers. I know some people are kind of wishy-washy about it. I know some Cowboy fans probably weren't a big fan of it and maybe thought, Dak's interceptions were his fault or whatever. But like Dak wasn't the quarterback that he was, before the last few seasons. And that's been a lot of Kellen Moore and a lot of Doug Nussmeier, you would think. But this was an interesting part for the Chargers, Dave, because they did change things up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Before, they had Joe Lombardi, and they decided to go try to kind of mesh worlds. They tried to do Joe Lombardi and Shane Day, I think, to get some of that kind of Shanahan-ian offense built into it, but we never really saw it. And then, obviously the Saints offense that Joe Lombardi was bringing on board. And I think they tried to, smash those things together, even though those two guys had never coached with each other before and didn't have a history with, each other.
Yeah.
Now it's different because now they have, two guys that are super familiar with each other. We weren't sure if the Chargers were going to go that, way. And I think this is the Chargers growing in a certain sense, right? And trying to change things up and do it a different way. This is where I think it helps them the most and why I think it was the right call, David, because not only, do we think Nussmeier will take over potentially if Kellen Moore leaves, you still have to install the offense this year. And I think that's where having two guys like this from that same offense is going to really help a lot.
Yeah, because it's hard for you to sit here and be able to say that Shane Day was going to be able to completely understand the Joe Lombardi
was learning
style
himself,
of offense when he was trying to learn it himself and then trying to translate that to Justin Herbert to try to help him learn the offense. There's no such issue here with Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier having worked very closely together. They understand the offense inside and out, and you have your play caller and your quarterback's coach, the two people that are probably going to be spending the most time with your superstar quarterback with intimate knowledge of the offense. So there should be no issues with any questions of, hey, how did you see that? Or how does this play supposed to work out? You have the translation. You understand all of that. That's extremely valuable. I think that connection, familiarity breeds company. That's a situation that we have here. Hopefully that keeps that communication seamless and flawless.
Yeah, and any hire is a risk, right? That just because
course.
they're doing it the right way doesn't mean that the process or the results are going to turn out just because the process went right, obviously. But you hope that this, keeps Kellen Moore more in his comfort zone. We like talking about Justin Herbert's comfort zone, but what about Kellen Moore's comfort zone, right? Do we want another person like a Shane Day coming in and trying to impose things on him when he's finally getting out of the shadow of Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy, right? I don't know if I want that. I think I want him to have the full autonomy, and I think I want him to have somebody to kind of be that sounding board for him that knows what he's ultimately trying to achieve and gets the overall philosophy of the offense.
And one other thing I like and I think is something to point out is that Doug Nussmeier is a little bit older, and the Chargers coaching staff, just as a whole, is very, very young. So to have a little bit of a veteran coach, someone who has experience at the college level, has experience at the pro level, to add with a young head coach, with a slew of young coaches under him, I like that. I really feel like that's a really positive step for the Chargers.
I agree. And it's funny because I feel like 52 is probably like a middle-aged NFL coach, right?
Yeah.
That's like you are an old man on the Chargers coaching staff,
Definitely.
right? And Joe Lombardi was an older guy too, right? But this guy, the nice thing is he does also come with that play calling experience, did play in college, or coached in college. I like the fact that it's two quarterbacks. I
Hmm.
think that is nice. I mean, obviously, there can be too many cooks in the kitchen, something like that. But I like the
Sure.
fact that there's two quarterbacks kind of in charge of Justin Herbert's development. Two guys who have been in the NFL fire. For
Yeah.
Nussmeier, he was 5 years as a backup in the NFL. Kellen Moore was Dak Prescott's backup at one point, right? And was battling with Dak Prescott for a job, actually,
Yeah.
at one point. But both these guys get it. They get the rigors of the NFL. They get what it's like to be coached from guys like them, right? They've
Yeah.
been coached by their own offensive coordinators and quarterbacks
Sure.
coach trying to change things for them.
Yeah.
They have all that experience, which I think is invaluable. Like I've said before, I think the
Yeah.
Chargers lucked out with Kellen Moore, but I do think that is something, that can't be lost here. Like Doug Nussmeier was a Division One AA All-Star, right? He was the
Yeah.
Walter Payton Man of the Year, not Man of the Year, that's NFL. Walter Payton of the Year award, the MVP of Division One AA in 1993, won a
Nice.
Grey Cup in the CFL, had the 5 seasons, but like put up big time numbers at Idaho when he played there. I like that. I like that both these guys are former quarterbacks and kind of get that perspective of it too.
Well, it's the inventory of experiences at many different levels of football. We're talking college, multiple different programs, and then we're talking NFL. So it's a guy that's stepping into the building that has cachet, that was a
Sure.
player that understands, and Justin Herbert can say, okay, this guy's done there. He's been there, he's done that. I know that I can trust what he has to say because he's done what I'm doing now. So that's always something that's going to be comforting.
Yeah, I think
And,
so.
you can feel like, hey, this guy gets me. And, when I'm communicating, he's going to understand what I'm saying and what I've been going through because hey, the NFL is tough, man. So
Yeah.
anytime you can have anybody to ease that transition or, help you unlock your best potential, that's what you want.
Yeah, I think it does help. I mean, I guess the three most important positions, because Brandon Staley also a former college
Yes.
quarterback as well.
Yep.
So I like that. And I think that does bring some value to it. How much? Hard to quantify,
Sure, of
obviously.
course.
But I do think another good thing about Doug Nussmeier is a lot of different quarterbacks he's worked with. This is not
Yeah.
anywhere near the first time he's had to come and learn a new quarterback, right? And kind of, make an offense around them or be part of that.
Yeah.
Quarterback coach for 3 years at Michigan State, 2 years as quarterback coach with the St. Louis Rams, Fresno State quarterback coach in 2008, Washington QB coach, Alabama OC and QB coach in 2012, 2013, play calling experience under Nick Saban. Not a bad place to be.
Not at
Then
all.
Michigan offensive coordinator from 2014, more play calling duties. And then Florida, big time SEC school, OC from 2015 to 2017. Another thing I think is a nice little feather in the cap for him, just having gone to a lot of different guys, right?
Yeah.
He's been in this situation a lot of different times.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's incredibly valuable because, he knows that he's going to step into this situation, have to learn Justin Herbert. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
everybody knows who he is, but can see what he does day in and day out and the
Finding the
throws that he
comfort
can
zone
make.
for a lot of different people, right?
Yes.
Should be able to easier find that, more easily find it.
Definitely can find that comfort zone and can say, "Hey, I worked with all different types of quarterbacks," and I'm sure he took things that he liked from each
Sure.
one of those, and he gets to translate that to Justin Herbert, and that might make one thing click in Justin Herbert's mind, and that could change things for how he performs. You just never know what knowledge gets brought to the table can make that type of difference.
Well, and the nice thing is too is he's never had a quarterback as good as Justin Herbert, right? I guess it depends
Not
what
at
you think of
all.
Dak Prescott, but I mean, I'd firmly put Herbert ahead of Dak at this point. So
Yes.
like he gets his best, plaything to have. Like he gets
Yeah.
his the best chance, at building the perfect quarterback, and just helping some dude achieve the next level of greatness. And that's really all there is left for Justin Herbert at this point, right? Like the winning, all that stuff, that's more team oriented. As far as
Yeah.
just production wise, there's only one place for Justin Herbert to get to, right? And it's that next tier of the Mahomeses and the
Yeah.
Josh Allens and the
It's the
Burrows, and just
MVP level. Yeah.
consistently being named with the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's probably in that second tier right now. He's trying to help him break through into that top tier. And I think,
Yeah.
we know that he has the talent to do it. We don't know if Doug
Absolutely.
Nussmeier is going to be the perfect guy for this job. But as far as what the Chargers had available to them, as far as what made sense philosophy wise, I think I really like this hire. And I do think
Yeah.
it'll be beneficial for Justin Herbert to have two dudes coming from the same mind, not Shane Day and Joe Lombardi coming at him separately, trying to teach a new offense. Two dudes that should be in lockstep and ready to kind of get this thing forward and hopefully accelerate the process, right? That's what you're hoping. this familiarity can help accelerate the process. Joe Lombardi's talking about football 101. Hopefully they can get past 101 in this new first offseason with Kellen Moore and company. But that wasn't the only new hire that the Chargers ended up making, because they have a new linebacker coach in the building, which is kind of interesting, David, because we're watching two linebackers who just came off their best seasons ever with Drew Tranquill and Kazir White. Wasn't enough. Darius Wynn wasn't enough. They went and got Ryan Ficken. Michael Wilhoit, now they have a new guy in charge. Hopefully he can take the linebackers in the right direction. But I do need to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here now, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We know football's over, and it is very sad. But the great news is FanDuel always has great options of things to bet with. And new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That means even if you lose, you can win. And my favorite way to lose is also winning. So that's great. But you get bonus bets back if your bet doesn't win. All you have to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. And you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. That's what I love. I love player props. So whether it's player points, rebounds, assists, etc., whatever you want to bet on, they have it there at FanDuel. And they have exclusive bets that you can only find on FanDuel, like the 2x3. That means you're betting on someone 2 3-pointers in the first 3 minutes of a game. That's risky. Heck of a payout, though, if you can get it done. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets and a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Don't miss out on your chance, guys, with your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. We talked about, the coach that gets all the praise, right? The big time news of the quarterback's coach getting all the swagger today. But, hey, I'm a linebacker. I used to play linebacker. So let's talk about the linebacker coach, because the Chargers have a new one. It's been reported that they have hired Jeff Howard as their inside linebackers coach. He was the passing game coordinator and DB coach for the Browns over the last few seasons. Another important distinction, I think, not fired from the Browns, hired directly away from the Browns, even though they had some changes on their staff. As far as I know, he was just stolen. He wasn't, just picked up off the free agent heap. But David, what do you think of this move? It is an interesting choice going with a DB coach here, but he does have, an extensive resume in the league. He comes with some experience for sure.
Yeah, 10 years in the NFL, mostly with the Vikings, then with the Cleveland Browns.
Under Mike Zimmer, though, Mike Zimmer is a very, very good defensive coach. That's not a bad dude to kind of, cut your teeth with at all.
A guy that has frustrated the Chargers on a couple of different occasions.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely not. Don't recommend watching the Chargers-Vikings games at all. They were not fun, especially recently. Not a good experience. But the one thing I do like, at least, that he was an assistant linebackers coach. So he has somewhat experience, a lot of experience on the defensive side. And you see this a lot, especially with position coaches, that you don't necessarily find just a career linebackers coach or a career edge coach. They usually bounce from position group to position group. And so this is pretty normal. Yeah, I like it. You bring in a guy into the building that has a ton of NFL coaching experience.
Yeah, and you wonder, is this going to potentially help the Chargers as far as coverage goes, right? Is that kind of the focal point of this move? Because it's Drew Tranquill was good in coverage. Kenneth Murray had his moments for sure. But linebackers covering people has not been, you're not going to mistake either of these guys for, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, right? And some of that is just your personnel, and you have what you have to work with, right? But even though, David, he hasn't really coached linebackers like that. And you're right. A lot of it is they're just different steps, just different levels of getting higher. You go tight ends coach, and you go, running backs coach to offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, whatever. It's just all kind of part of the hierarchy of making your way up in the NFL. And this is a dude who stuck around for multiple regimes with the Vikings, right? Got hired away with Kevin Stefanski when he went to the Browns. Someone, that he obviously knows well. But the other thing is, too, David, is this dude was an All-American linebacker at Eastern New Mexico State. So, this is not a guy that, is new to this position at all. This is a guy that followed his dad to a smaller college, right? Division I AA. But he excelled, an All-American. That is something that I think obviously gives you, some credibility there. Sure. And he's also probably a genius as well, because kind of like Justin Herbert, he graduated cum laude with a biology degree and chemistry as well. So got another science freak in here. But I think that is one area, that the Chargers definitely can improve. But at the same time, Dave, we don't even know kind of who he has at this point, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Drew Tranquill. If he's left with just Kenneth Murray, and the kind of other remaining parts, younger guys like Nick Niemann and Amen Agbagbamiga, like that is going to play a big part of it as well.
Yeah, if that's the situation, the cupboard is kind of barren. Okay, that is that, and hey, I think we saw some positive strides from Kenneth Murray last year. Some
Yeah, for
things
sure.
that you actually liked. You didn't flip on the tape and say, "Man, I hated this performance," game after game. Which, a couple of seasons before that, I mean, you could say that there was a lot of different things. And again, the Chargers were moving around Kenneth Murray to different,
He
trying to
played edge for a
different
while, yeah.
positions. Yeah, he played edge, which really had no position playing edge. He was not productive whatsoever. But one of the things that you saw this year for Kenneth Murray is they put him in situations where he can just go downhill and attack like a heat-seeking missile, and throw himself into the defense, into the offensive line, which I feel like
Sometimes to a fault, yeah.
yeah, sure, he torpedoed a couple times, but you saw some positive steps from him this year. So at least you have that to work with. But man, Drew Tranquil walks. I mean, that's going to be a very scary situation.
Well, and I think that's kind of part of the reason why we were, surprised that Michael Will Hoyt was let go to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Kazir White has a career season under him, blooms into, a
Yep.
great linebacker under Michael Will Hoyt, who, like this, played linebacker at the NFL level, right? And
Mhm.
had that experience. A hire I was initially excited about, sure. And then has Drew Tranquil this year go on and have a career season. Gives Kenneth Murray the best season we've ever seen from him. At the same time, though, like, I think when you're looking at kind of areas of the team you weren't getting enough defensively, it's hard to say the linebackers wouldn't be one of them, right? Like, I don't think it's, crazy to think that the Chargers could get more out of that position. Braden Fehoko was trying to replace Kenneth Murray yesterday. I mean, I'm not taking any shots or anything. But, like, obviously, like, there is some room for them to improve there. And I think that's why it was surprising to see Michael Will Hoyt go. But the last time we saw him let somebody go like that, it turned out okay in Ryan Ficken.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I mean, it was a
Truly.
surprise because I
Yeah.
felt like, like I just said, I felt like the linebackers
The only defensive
had,
coach to go to, I think, right? Now that we're
yeah,
thinking about it, the only
right.
guy.
So it just makes you feel like there's something there behind the
Yeah,
scenes that you you,
weird.
you don't you don't get to understand. You don't get, you're
Or
not
there was a
privy.
frustration, yeah, from Brain Staley or, defensive coaches about, some things maybe that weren't getting done. Sure.
Right, yeah, knowledge you're not privy to. So yeah, it was a move I was surprised about because I felt like the linebackers actually took steps forward and had some progression. But
Yeah.
hey, this happens in the NFL. The NFL is a business, and if you are not up to snuff of what the head coach is expecting, especially a defensive head coach who for sure has his eyes glued more so to that side of the ball, you're not doing what he needs you to do, then he's going to go find somebody else that can, or that he thinks can. So
Yeah.
enter Jeff Howard, and hopefully we continue to see some progression from the linebackers, because if Drew Tranquil does leave, you are going to need to develop those guys like Nick Niemann, like Amon. You need to get the best out of those guys, and I don't feel like you can sit here and say you're ready to put those guys on the field on defense on a more permanent basis.
Well, I think the one thing you hope with Mike Will Hoyt is, like, I hope it wasn't Kenneth Murray related, right? Like, not
Yeah,
being able to get Kenneth Murray to the level he needed to be at, just because it's like that's something multiple dudes have tried, right? And he probably got the closest to it, so it's
yeah,
hard to really blame him at all for that. Um, Yeah, I mean, I like the hire. I think as far as the linebackers go, and as far as this situation specifically, like Darius Swinton got fired, and we were surprised a little bit because we saw progression
yeah,
from the special teams, right? We saw them move from the worst team in the NFL to somewhere in the mid 20s, which still was bad, right? And I think maybe that's kind of what this is. Yes, the linebackers were progressing, but
yeah.
maybe they weren't progressing quickly enough. Maybe
Right.
it wasn't enough, they didn't improve enough to get to where they needed to be. And maybe that's where he thinks that they can go with Jeff Howard. So, like Doug Nussmeier, we don't know how these coaching hires are going to
Sure.
work out, but we kind of see the process here and why they're doing it, and we understand why they're doing it. And let's be honest, right? The whole defense needs to get better. So if this is a
No
guy,
doubt.
and maybe more heads should have rolled on that side of the ball, because the Chargers did not play well defensively for most of the season. They played terribly when they went up against good offenses, where guess what? When you get to the playoffs, that's all there is. So you
Yep.
need to get better there. Maybe he's the first step in the kind of the right direction. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you to everyone who kind of showered us with praise for the Braden Fehoko interview. We are very happy with how that went. And, we're going to try to do more stuff like that going forward and, ask good questions and kind of get some of these Chargers players and some of these guests to open up a little bit more. So to make sure you guys don't miss episodes like that and today's episode and tomorrow's episode, make sure you guys are following wherever you get your podcast from and subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. You can also find the show every day on all of our social media. You can find the show's Twitter account at Locked On LAC, and you can also find our Twitters at, for me, Dan Talk Sports, and David at Dro Talk ST. We are getting into Fan Mail Friday tomorrow, guys. So make sure you guys get your questions in. You can call into 323-524-7924 on the Locked On Chargers voicemail line. Leave a 30-second question. You are likely to get on the show if you can do that. And you can also hit us up on Twitter. We'll put a post out. You can put your question for Fan Mail Friday in the YouTube comments if you're watching on there right now. Make sure you guys get involved. We're turning it over to you tomorrow and get into some great things. But that's going to do it for us today, guys. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.